I wasn't supposed to be there. Not at that hour. Not in that place. But something older than memory pulled me across the sand, toward a secret the desert had kept buried for thousands of years. They say the western desert of Egypt holds more than just dunes and ancient ruins. They say it holds answers. Answers to questions we've forgotten how to ask. Answers that come at a price. And on one particular night, in an oasis lost to time, beneath a sky thick with stars and silence, I discovered that some doors should never be opened. Some secrets should never be disturbed. My name doesn't matter. What matters is what I found. What matters is what the midnight hour revealed to me beneath the ancient stones of Siwa, a place where silence speaks louder than words, where the past refuses to stay buried, and where the living walk among shadows that have lingered for millennia. This is that story. And if you're listening, you're already part of it. The journey began weeks before I ever set foot in the oasis. It started with a rumor, whispered in the narrow, winding alleys of Cairo, passed between guides who'd seen too much and spoken too little. Men with weathered faces and eyes that had looked into places most people only read about in books. They talked about a place in the western desert, beyond Bahariya, beyond Farafra, where the sand hides something the world has forgotten. Something that predates the pyramids. Something that even the pharaohs feared. Don't go there at night, one old man told me in a tea house near Khan el-Khalili. His voice was barely a whisper, his eyes clouded with age and something else. Fear, maybe? Or reverence. He leaned closer, the smell of cardamom and tobacco thick in the air. The desert protects its secrets. It always has. And the night belongs to them. Them? I asked. He didn't answer. Just shook his head slowly and looked away as if he'd already said too much. But I've never been good at taking advice. Especially when it comes wrapped in mystery. So I went. I hired a driver who asked no questions. A stoic Bedouin named Mahmoud who chain-smoked cigarettes and drove like he was fleeing something. We packed light. Water, dried food, a sleeping bag, my camera, and a flashlight with spare batteries. Nothing else. The less you carry, the faster you can move. That's what my father used to say. The road west from Cairo is long and unforgiving. It cuts through a landscape that seems to exist outside of time itself. Sand the color of bone. Sky the color of regret. No billboards. No gas stations for miles. Just emptiness. Vast, beautiful, terrifying emptiness. We drove for hours. The sun climbed, blazed, and began its slow descent, painting the dunes in shades of amber, rust, and blood. And then, just as twilight settled over the desert like a funeral shroud, I saw it. The oasis. Siwa. A green jewel set in an ocean of sand, ancient and defiant, clinging to life in a place where life should not exist. Mahmoud dropped me at the edge of the settlement and turned the engine off. For a moment, we sat in silence, listening to the metal of the car tick as it cooled. You sure about this? He asked, not looking at me. No, I said. But I'm going anyway. He nodded slowly. There's a mountain. East of here. Gebel al-Mada. The locals call it the Mountain of the Dead. I know. Then you know what they say about it. What do they say? He looked at me, then really looked at me, and for the first time I saw fear in his eyes. They say the tombs are not empty. They say that at night the mountain remembers. And when it remembers, the dead wake. I didn't respond. What could I say? He reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a small leather pouch. Inside was a tarnished silver amulet on a chain. My grandmother gave this to me. It's old. Very old. For protection. I can't take that, I said. You will, he said, pressing it into my hand. Because I won't be here when you come back. If you come back. He started the engine, and before I could say another word, he was gone. I watched his taillights disappear into the dusk, swallowed by the desert, and suddenly I felt it, that pull. That inexplicable sensation that I was being called. Summoned. Expected. I had maybe 2 hours before midnight. If you've ever felt that same pull, that irresistible urge to step into the unknown, type the word called below. And if this story has you hooked already, consider subscribing. Because what comes next is only the beginning. The settlement of Siwa was unlike any place I'd ever been. It felt displaced, as if it belonged to another century entirely. Mud brick houses clustered together like ancient organisms seeking warmth. Palm trees swayed in the evening breeze, their fronds whispering secrets I couldn't quite hear. The air smelled of dates, salt, and something else, something old and faintly metallic like rust or blood. The locals were polite but distant. They moved through the narrow streets like shadows, their eyes lingering on me just a moment too long. I asked about the ruins, the old temples, the tombs carved into limestone hills, the forgotten places where history still breathed. Most ignored me. A few shook their heads and hurried away. Finally I found him. An old Bedouin elder sitting outside a small shop, his face carved by wind and sun into a landscape of wrinkles and scars. His eyes were sharp, too sharp for a man his age. He was watching me before I even approached. "You're looking for the mountain," he said in English. It wasn't a question. I nodded. He studied me in silence, chewing slowly on a date, his gaze never wavering. Then he pointed with a gnarled finger toward a dark ridge on the eastern edge of the oasis, barely visible against the deepening twilight. "Gebel al-Mata, the mountain of the dead. But you won't find what you're looking for there. Not during the day." "Then when?" I asked. He leaned forward and I smelled tobacco and sage. "When the living sleep, the dead remember. When the moon is high and the desert is silent, that's when the mountain speaks. But be warned, traveler. Not all who listen survive the listening." "Survive?" I repeated. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "The mountain has been here for 3,000 years. It has seen empires rise and fall. It has swallowed kings and priests and warriors. It remembers everything. And those who disturb its memories, they become part of them." I didn't understand. Not yet. But I would. As night fell, I made my way toward the mountain. The path was unmarked, barely visible in the pale moonlight that cast everything in shades of silver and shadow. Around me, the oasis settled into a stillness so deep it felt almost sacred. No wind. No voices. No sounds of life. Just the soft crunch of sand beneath my boots and the distant call of a dog, low and mournful as if mourning something long dead. The mountain of the dead rose before me like a sleeping giant. Its slopes were dotted with ancient tombs, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, carved into the rock thousands of years ago. They stood like open mouths waiting. Hungry. I'd read about this place. A necropolis dating back to the 26th dynasty. A burial ground where the wealthy and powerful of ancient Siwa were laid to rest with all the treasures they thought would accompany them into the afterlife. But tonight it felt different. Alive somehow. As if the mountain itself was watching me. Waiting. I began to climb, my flashlight cutting through the darkness, illuminating fragments of the past. Faded hieroglyphs. Crumbling walls. The remnants of lives lived and forgotten. I passed the tomb of Siwa, its vibrant painting still visible after millennia. Gods and goddesses frozen in eternal dance, their colors faded but still beautiful. I paused at the tomb of Siwa Oasis, its stone guardians standing eternal watch, their faces worn smooth by time and wind. And then, just as the hour neared midnight, I found it. A tomb I hadn't seen on any map. A door half buried in sand, its entrance unmarked, unrecorded. Hidden. My heart began to hammer in my chest. This wasn't on any registry. No archaeologist had documented it. No tourist had ever seen it. I was the first living soul to stand before this place in, how long? 100 years? 1,000? I should have turned back. Every instinct told me to. But instead, I knelt down and began to dig. The sand was cold, much colder than it should have been. It slipped through my fingers like water, revealing more of the entrance with each handful. Stone. Ancient stone. Carved with symbols I didn't recognize. Not hieroglyphs. Something older. Something that predated even the language of the pharaohs. And then, as I cleared the last of the sand, I felt it. A breath. Cold. Impossibly cold. Coming from inside the tomb. Midnight came as I stood at the threshold. The air around me seemed to shift, growing colder, heavier. My breath formed thin clouds in the desert night. Somewhere in the distance, that dog howled again, low and mournful, and then fell silent. Completely silent. I hesitated. The darkness inside was absolute, swallowing the beam of my flashlight like water swallowing stone. I could feel something in there. Not see it. Not hear it. But feel it. A presence. Ancient. Patient. Waiting. But I'd come too far to stop now. I stepped inside. The chamber was small, no larger than a modest room, but it felt vast, infinite, somehow, as if the walls extended beyond physical space into something else entirely. The air was thick, difficult to breathe, heavy with dust and time and something else I couldn't name. The walls were covered in hieroglyphs, perfectly preserved as if no time had passed at all. Scenes of daily life. Offerings to the gods. Prayers for the journey into the afterlife. And something else. Something darker. Scenes of judgment. Scenes of punishment. Scenes of souls being weighed and found wanting. And in the center of the room, untouched by the centuries, was a sarcophagus. My heart hammered in my chest. This wasn't on any registry. No archaeologist had documented it. No museum knew it existed. I was the first living soul to stand in this place in thousands of years. I approached slowly, reverently, my footsteps echoing in the small chamber like thunder. The sarcophagus was made of limestone, its surface etched with the image of a figure, not a pharaoh but someone important. A priest, perhaps. Or an oracle. The face was serene, eyes closed, mouth slightly open as if about to speak. I knelt beside it, running my fingers over the carvings. They were cold. Too cold. And that's when I saw it, partially hidden beneath centuries of dust, a small inscription. A name. Moniasare Senab. The name meant nothing to me. But the weight of it, the history contained in those ancient symbols, was overwhelming. I tried to take a photo. My camera refused to turn on. The battery, fully charged an hour ago, was dead. I switched to my phone. Same result. Completely dead. The air in the chamber grew colder still. And then I heard it. A sound. Soft. Rhythmic. Like breathing. I froze. It came from everywhere and nowhere at once. A whisper, a sigh, a voice that spoke without words. I couldn't understand it, but somehow I felt it. Deep in my chest. Deep in my bones. A presence. Ancient. Patient. Aware. My flashlight flickered. Once. Twice. Then died. I stood in absolute darkness, my pulse roaring in my ears, and for the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to be truly alone, and yet not alone at all. The breathing continued. Steady. Eternal. Waiting. I fumbled for my backup light, my hands shaking, my fingers numb with cold. Finally, I managed to turn it on. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating the sarcophagus once more. But something was different. The dust I'd disturbed was settling, but not naturally. It was moving in patterns, forming shapes, symbols I didn't recognize. Ancient symbols. Warnings maybe. Or invitations. And on the far wall, barely visible in the dim light, was something I hadn't seen before. A door. Smaller than the entrance I'd come through. Carved into the stone. Sealed with what looked like clay or wax or something organic that had hardened over millennia. I approached it, mesmerized, my fear giving way to something else. Obsession. Need. Compulsion. I had to know what was behind it. I had to see. I pressed my hand against the stone and it was warm. Impossibly warm. As if something on the other side was alive. Breathing. Waiting. And then, just as I leaned closer, the light went out again. This time I didn't turn it back on. Because I wasn't alone anymore. I could feel it. A presence. Standing behind me. Close. Too close. I could hear breathing that wasn't mine. I could feel cold air on the back of my neck. I could smell something ancient and earthy and wrong. But I couldn't move. I stood there, paralyzed, my heart threatening to burst from my chest, and then I felt it. A hand. Cold. Impossibly cold. Resting on my shoulder. And a voice. Whispering. Not in my ear. In my mind. Leave. I don't know how I got out. I don't remember running. I don't remember climbing back down the mountain. All I remember is standing outside, gasping for air, my lungs burning, my legs trembling, staring back at the entrance I just escaped from. The tomb was exactly as I'd left it. Silent. Still. Waiting. But I was different. I stumbled back toward the oasis, moving faster than I should have, nearly falling twice. My mind was racing. What had I felt? What had I heard? Was it real? Was it exhaustion? Dehydration? Imagination? But I knew better. When I finally reached the settlement, the first light of dawn was breaking over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. The oasis was beginning to wake. Doors opened. Voices murmured. Life returned. I found a small cafe, ordered tea, and sat in silence, trying to make sense of what had happened. Trying to convince myself it had been nothing. Just a trick of the mind. Just fear playing games in the darkness. But when I finally checked my camera, my phone, everything was still dead. Except for one thing. On the memory card of my camera, there was one image. A single photo I didn't remember taking. It showed the sarcophagus. Clear. Detailed. Perfect. And in the corner, barely visible in the shadows, was a figure. Tall. Draped in robes. Watching me. Watching the camera. Watching you. I left Siwa that morning. I didn't say goodbye to anyone. I didn't explain. I just left. Mahmoud never came back, just as he'd said. I hitched a ride with a supply truck heading east and didn't look back. Not once. Days passed. Then weeks. But I couldn't forget. The memory of that chamber, that presence, that voice, it followed me. Haunted me. I couldn't sleep without seeing that sealed door. I couldn't close my eyes without feeling that cold hand on my shoulder. I researched the name, Ammonius Senab, but found nothing. No records. No mention in any academic database or archaeological journal. It was as if the person had never existed. Or perhaps as if they were meant to be forgotten. Erased. Hidden. I spoke to historians carefully, vaguely. I reached out to Egyptologists, asking general questions about Siwa, about the Mountain of the Dead, about forgotten tombs and lost priests. Most dismissed me. A few were intrigued but skeptical. Finally I found him. An old professor in Alexandria. Dr. Khalil. He'd spent 50 years studying the Western Desert, the Oases, the forgotten corners of Egyptian history that most scholars ignored. When I mentioned the Mountain of the Dead, he leaned back in his chair and smiled. "You went at night, didn't you?" he said. I nodded. "And you found something. How did you know?" He poured tea slowly, deliberately. "Because you're not the first. Every few years, someone comes to me with the same story. A hidden tomb. A sealed door. A presence. And always they ask the same question. Was it real? Was it?" I asked. He looked at me for a long moment, then said, "The ancients believed that some souls don't pass on. They remain. Guardians of secrets too dangerous to be known. Protectors of knowledge that would destroy us if we understood it. They believed that certain places, certain tombs, were not just burial chambers but prisons. And that the seals on those doors were not to keep thieves out but to keep something in. Do you believe that?" I asked. He shrugged. "I believe the desert keeps what it wants to keep. And it reveals what it chooses to reveal. Sometimes to warn us. Sometimes to test us. And sometimes to claim us." "Then why me?" I asked. "Why did I find it? Why not someone else? Why not a trained archaeologist or a historian or—" He interrupted me. "Maybe it wasn't you who found it. Maybe it found you." I stared at him, my blood running cold. He continued. "The desert is old. Older than Egypt. Older than humanity. And it has a memory. A long, patient memory. Perhaps you were meant to find that tomb. Perhaps you were meant to see what you saw. Perhaps you were meant to carry that knowledge back into the world. Or perhaps—" He paused. "Perhaps you were meant to become part of the secret yourself." I left his office that day with more questions than answers. And I've carried them with me ever since. I haven't been back to Siwa. Part of me wants to. Part of me needs to understand. But a larger part, the part that felt that cold hand, heard that voice, saw that figure in the shadows, knows that some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved. Some doors are meant to stay sealed. Some secrets are meant to be kept. The desert holds its secrets close. It always has. And the night, as that old man told me, belongs to them. But here's the thing. Since that night, I've noticed something. When I'm alone. When it's quiet. When the sun sets and the world grows dark, I feel it. That pull. That presence. That sense of being watched. And sometimes, just sometimes, I hear it. That voice. Whispering. Not in my ear. In my mind. Return. So what do you think? Would you have opened that door? Would you have stayed in that chamber, knowing something was there with you? Would you go back if you were me? Share your thoughts below. And if this story moved you, subscribe to join me on the next journey. The real story is only beginning, and what came next would test everything I thought I knew about the world, about history, and about what lies beneath the sand, waiting to be found. Until then, stay curious, stay brave, and never stop seeking the truth. Even when the truth seeks you first. Because at midnight, in an oasis lost to time, I found something hidden. And in doing so, I became part of the secret myself. The desert remembers, and so do I.